나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Hello, everyone. How are you? I hope you're in good health and secure. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. If I sound a little tired today, I just so you know, when I can, I do work on the elderly's homes out here. Specifically, there's an elderly woman, 87, going on 88, obviously. And she's pretty frail. And her extended family, they just don't seem to be capable or interested in helping her keep her house up. And the house is slowly deteriorating around her. And so every now and again, I go up there and do a project and try to help her out. Anyway, long story short, I'm not as agile as I used to be. So, yeah, I'm a little pain here, pain there, swollen here, swollen there, tired. So, just so you know. All right, let us continue with this Ongi Kuden, which I think it's pretty obvious by now that what we're reading is a studious, note-taking, general information, condensation of notes to self, probably as an assignment from a senior, maybe the abbot, their teacher in the school, Fuji school. And a lot of this information it tracks as Nichiren, albeit for the first part, which is a grave error in all of Buddhism, not just Nichiren. And we've talked about that already. So, but it seems to be a collection of excerpts from different documents, almost like a presentation. Like this monk is putting together this is what I have learned, and this makes me ready then to become an abbot at another temple. You can imagine, as a school, of any school, but in this case Buddhism, grows and the membership grows, there's call for it to be in another geographical location. People are traveling way too far to come to this one central place. And if you're going to expand and open another school, then you have to be careful about the leadership of that school and make sure that it not only takes responsibility and ownership of that school, but it also takes responsibility and ownership of the methods of teachings and the understanding of the sect you are, to not deviate, to not have a misunderstanding and create difficulty for ultimately you and I, the practitioners, right? If we get different information from different sources, then we're made to be the selector of what is more true and what is erroneous. Well, it's an interesting thing because as Shakyamuni made very clear several times, that we're not to follow the person, but to follow the law, and that this is why we need to study all of Buddhist scholarship so that you and I ourselves make the decision for whatever our particular karmic hindrances and tendencies and facilities require certain insights in order for us to drive forward in the ultimate goal, attaining our Buddha nature, our Buddha-ness, right? And so this is a self-motivated practice. This is a self-directed practice, right? But all the same, hundreds of years ago, the way teachings grew and influenced the populace was by this control, this agreed dogma, really, of teaching, so that the same message would be sent throughout your sect, your school, right? So that's what this document looks like, because it's not simply just note-taking. There are justifications, and there are a lot of quotes from the Ongi Kuden, what is termed the Ongi Kuden. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? On the one hand, this is treated as a text of the Ongi Kuden. On the other hand, these are excerpts from the Ongi Kuden on which a lot of scholarship of that sect has been applied. So it's interesting that the course of events seems to be the 6 monks get together after Nichiren passes away, and one of the monks has a major disagreement with the other 5. It has to be a major disagreement because he leaves Minobu and goes to a completely other geographical location and sets up shop as the Fuji school. So what could be that huge of a schism that would compel him to leave the entire region of the other 5 to go start his own? What did Nichiren not cover? What did Nichiren did not anticipate in that his 6 senior scholars, one would be so different that he would break from the group to start his own sect of Nichiren doctrine of the Lotus Sutra Buddhism. And I think I've identified that a few times. So the Ongi Kuden is said to be his notes, his split. This is Ajari Nikko with 2 Ks, right? He split, went on his own, and wrote down his thoughts and his impression of Nichiren's lectures. And so what this looks like is that those writings are being used as a template for this monk to justify, to elaborate on, to demonstrate his skill so that he can be approved to go to another location and become the abbot of that location. That's what this document looks like, my humble opinion, okay? But the structure of it just seems to say that over and over again. That being said, there's a lot in this document that tracks very well with Nichiren's scholarship and doctrine. Hello, Mr. Spider. Yeah, get off the computer, please. Thank you. Okay. But there's that one annoying rift that keeps demonstrating itself, and I caught it in the last video, where certain interpretations, they're kind of colored by an egotisticalness. And I think it tracks throughout all of the Fuji schools. Certainly tracks in some modern organizations we can name. And it's just not accurate. It's not Buddhism. If ego rears itself in these dialogues, is that not an adherence to a self? Need I say more? How non-Buddhist is that? So let's move on. He's going to dive into the 10 realms, or as we know them, the 10 worlds, right? Same thing. And still talking about the parable of the conjured city, the magical city, the fabulous city, this parable of setting up a goal to keep one's practice going in the face of obstacles and struggles. And that fabled city, that conjured city, conjured is a good word because all of samsara is a constructed experience, right? We've talked about the apparatus that the mind is emergent of. And so in that vein, the conjured city represents the samsaric identification with a goal. It's a little mixed up, but I think the way this particular monk, whoever he is, presents it is not too far from the mark. So let's get into it. The 10 realms are all the conjured city. The 10 realms are each the place of jewels. So there's that dichotomy. The 10 realms are all the conjured city. In other words, the 10 worlds that we experience constantly, and the 10 within the 10, and the 10 within the 10 with the 10 factors, with the 3 factors, 3,000 realms, right? We've talked about this several times, is an experience we have with our human minds in samsara, this identification, right? And then right away, not even a separate sentence because it's a semicolon, the 10 realms are each the place of jewels. And that follows from the teaching that all of this samsaric manifestations exists solely for the instantiation of mind, and with the mind, the clear mind of Buddha, we then become the treasure tower itself. The treasure tower, the treasures, what are the treasures? Do you remember? To put it simply, the treasures are the magnificent play of all life and the understanding, the perception that all of it is equanimity, that everything is just in flow and showing off all of its potentials. And so it implores or implicitly disconnects us, on the one hand, from being attached to it and identifying with it, and on the other hand, connects us through the Buddha mind as the wonder of it all. That it all exists simply for our participation, our pleasure, our enjoyment, our reward body. That is the Dharma body once we accomplish our Buddha mind, right? So in that sentence alone, he's making that statement. Now he goes on. The conjured city is the 9 realms. The place of jewels is the Buddha realm. So that's another way of looking at it. There are 9 consciousnesses. The first 5 or 6 are what we experience all the time. Sight, hearing, taste, feeling, mind, right? The 6th sense. And then the 7th, 8th, and 9th are levels of perspective and perception and baggage we're carrying along from our attachments. And the 9th blows that all apart, surrounds it. Go back and look at that video if you need to. Not long ago, last month, I think, maybe the month before, on the 9 consciousnesses. But I think I listed everything in the soup there. 9 consciousnesses, Myoho Renge Kyo, all of it. Because it all surrounds this idea that we are inherently enlightened. But this intoxication of samsara obfuscates our true nature. According to the text of the sutra, now he's quoting the sutra, from the conjured city to the place of jewels is a distance of 500 yohanas. These 500 yohanas represent the delusions arising from views and thoughts, the delusions innumerable as dust motes and sand grains, and the delusions arising from ignorance, from simply not knowing that we have an enlightened nature. To open these 500 yohanas, interesting, open 500 yohanas, that are the defilements, revealing them to the 5 characters of the wonderful Dharma, is called the conjured city, being precisely the place of jewels. So I've never heard it said this way exactly, but if you were to be a scholar of Nichiren, this wouldn't be an unreasonable way to identify Myoho Renge Kyo. And so what this is saying is when we chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we are converting this very place of the conjured realm into the treasure tower, the jeweled existence, the brilliant Buddha-ness, right? In the phrase, the conjured city is precisely the place of jewels, which is from the Lotus Sutra. The word precisely indicates Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. So there it is, tying it directly to Nichiren. At each moment, it is the conjured city. At each moment, it is the place of jewels. So this is the duality of our existence as Buddhists, not the duality of everybody else. It's a duality for us. It's a unique, I'll say, duality to us, because being aware that we have an inherent Buddha nature, we can understand that this samsaric realm is only half the picture. That if we reinvestigate the very same thing from our perspective of Buddha-ness, it changes everything. Follow? The provisional teachings expound our physical and mental dharmas as impermanent, both of them. They're constantly in flux, constantly flowing. Remember, kinetics, momentum, all these words we have to describe something that simply isn't static and that exists in and of itself. Everything's a flow. Okay? The Lotus Sutra teaches that they constantly abide. In other words, there's a trajectory to everything. But they don't abide statically. They constantly abide because they're constantly forming. Moment, 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 moment. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. It's not just you and I. It's everything in the phenomenal universe that exists in this manner. When one dissolves feelings of attachment to the view of impermanence, that is the dissolution of the conjured city. So it's a very, very succinct way of putting it if you're familiar with Nichiren's teaching. Otherwise, this will just maybe be meaningless. But when he says, when one dissolves feelings of attachment, to someone who's not Buddhist, that's like somebody talking to you about breaking up with somebody, right? But as Buddhists, we understand attachment to be something much more profound. It's the very act of permanentizing everything. To hold it as it is. Don't change. I've got you. Well, that's the delusion that is manifested in our mind, and it becomes part of our identity. So to say to dissolve the feelings of attachment to the view of impermanence, in other words, there's no sorrow or pain in letting something just flow like a butterfly. If you hold it in your hand, you will kill it. But to experience the butterfly and let it move on and continue to change is like the amazing process of the caterpillar in the first place. Constantly metamorphosizing. Appreciate that aspect, and you release your constructed ownership permanentizing and experience a great release of that attachment, as well as a deep fondness for the fact that you got to experience it at all. It's not that complicated if you really dissect it, and that's what this monk is doing. The conjured city, okay, he's going to make another example. The conjured city is our skin and flesh. The place of jewels is in our bones. See, I don't like that one. And every time I see something like this, I wonder, is this part of the pollution caused by not understanding that we follow the law and not the person? I'll remind you that the very opening of this document is a statement that's supposedly made by Nichiren, but you will never find Nichiren saying it, that Na and Mu are characters worshiping, or what was the word used? The person, and saying the person is Shakyamuni or the person, whatever. The idea that it means person and mind. That's an egregious error. And we don't worship or follow Shakyamuni. Shakyamuni told us not to. And so did Nichiren, by the way. But, what was that statement? Namu derives from Sanskrit, and here in Japan it is called kimyo, to devote one's life. The objects of this devotion are the person and the Dharma. Wham! Big crash on that one. No! It's never that. We dedicate our lives to achieving our Buddha-ness and to course as bodhisattvas in this world with that Buddha way, that enlightenment. There is no person in law, there is only the law. We're trying to dissolve our own person. I don't mean dissolve it as an extant thing. It's an extant thing and it's constantly changing. But it is the apparatus with which we can achieve Buddha-ness in our mind. That is the only thing we devote ourselves to. This is just our apparatus. We cart our mind around in this wheelbarrow. There's no person. See, this is where the confusion comes with Nichiren's identity. Because the Fuji school often, I'm trying to avoid identifying sects, but that identify Nichiren as superior to Shakyamuni, as a more, and this one's really mind-bending, as a more enduring or whose origin starts well beyond Shakyamuni's. What? Whether you're talking about a person or the law there, or the Dharma there, the Dharma has always existed. But it is only we in this form in samsara who can perceive it. You can't, when there's no mind, you right, Chi, we just read, where there's no mind, that's the end of the matter. When you're deceased, you're deceased. So this idea of predating and whose enlightenment is more profound, all of it comes from Shakyamuni's Buddha nature, his Buddha-ness, not Shakyamuni Siddhartha Gautama. To call him Siddhartha Gautama is an insult. It's to say that he's a man we're following. We're not following Siddhartha Gautama. We're following his enlightenment. And the name that we give to that enlightenment in samsara is Shakyamuni, the great saint from the Shakya clan, who is a great saint of the Shakya clan because he attained in his life as a human this great enlightenment, Buddha. I mean, how many teachings, how many sutras, how many schools all agree on this? So what's this deviation? Our enlightenment isn't in our bones. Our bones are part of the apparatus, the conjured city. So this is really upsetting when I read this. There's a confusion here. And it's a confusion that tracks with the original mistake. And I think that was the schism between Nico with 2Ks and the other 5 monks. It just seems really obvious. The opening and realization of the dharmas of the body and mind being the wonderful dharma is the reality of the conjured city being precisely the place of jewels. Yeah, I agree with that as tracking with Nichiren, but now I worry that something else slid in there that isn't right. Reality, quote unquote, he goes on, means the simultaneity and co-penetration of the impermanent and the constantly abiding, according with the conditions yet unchanging, quiescence and illumination in a single thought moment. Single thought moment here means a single thought moment in which one believes without doubt in Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. In the expression, the conjured city is precisely the place of jewels, one should fix one's mind, or one's find? I'm sure that's a typo. One's mind on the single word precisely and ponder it. Okay, if he truly understands what he just said, I think that could track with Nichiren's actual doctrine. But if he understands that enlightenment is in the bones, he's missed the point. The enlightenment is in the mind. The body is an apparatus. There's a distinct difference between the two. One's delusion, conjured city. One is Buddha-ness. You can't mix the parts of the conjured city and decide that part of it is enlightenment. Maybe I need to reread that. The conjured city is our skin and flesh. The place of jewels is in our bones. It depends on how he thinks in his expression here. And also, I have to add, it depends on the translation, doesn't it? Because I'm sure he didn't write it in English. So let's let it go for now. 6, quote, He straightway dissolved the conjured city. The Ongi Kuden states, so now we're back to this document that was supposedly made by the founder of the Fuji school, Nico with 2 Ks. And it says, the entity of one's person, which shall undergo dissolution, is the conjured city. Because one sees this dissolution as extinction, it remains the conjured city. But when one perceives it to be the extinction that is non-extinction, that is called the place of jewels. Okay, and that may be something Nico said. It tracks. It's making a fine point of how we understand death. If we see death as a simple process of eschewing the apparatus, kind of like when a parachutist, somebody who parachutes, lands on the ground, one of the first things they do is disconnect the parachute, right? So they can become mobile. So if you understand your extinction as releasing all of these illusions, no longer having to contend or course through them in order to maintain your enlightenment, and you simply are released from all of it, that's appropriate. But if you're struggling and identifying death as an ending, extinction as an ending, I mean the word extinction, right? And you see it as your end, then you haven't attained Buddhahood yet. You haven't understood what this process is and the part you play in it. because life continues without your identification or with your identification. This is simply an opportunity for you to see precisely that. And that should be so awesome that it transcends your attachment to birth and death. So he's making a distinction with the words that create the confusion in the first place, but right? Even Shakyamuni said only a Buddha and a Buddha can understand what we're trying to describe here, because words fail us. Words are rudimentary tools for us to attempt communication. But as far as describing what enlightenment is, it's something that must be experienced, right? Where are we time-wise? And we're doing good. But when one perceives it to be the extinction that is non-extinction, that is called the place of jewels. The, quote, Fathoming the Lifespan chapter expounds this with the words, quote, I manifest nirvana as a skillful means, yet I do not in reality enter into extinction. So this is that two-sided can I make up a word? Verbiation? Yeah, so this is quoting Shakyamuni in his lifespan of the Tathagata. Notice it doesn't say lifespan of Siddhartha Gautama. It doesn't say lifespan of the Buddha. It is the lifespan of the Tathagata. Tathagata being a Sanskrit word, I think it's Sanskrit origin, that, I forget, it's like ta and tha. They're all about being the flow, being that quiescent energy that ties everything together and from which everything is manifested, right? That never dies. It's never born. It comes into existence as perturbations, agitations in the quiescent realm. The quiescent realm has no reason to, no feelings, no attachment to manifestations. It's perfectly balanced to simply be potential until something agitates it. And then it just goes on its way, manifesting whatever agitation produces over and over again. So the first agitation begets many more agitations, begets many more. And then you start having this vast expression of potential. And in our universe, those potentials are everything from gravitations to quantum fields producing particles and charge, positive, negative, gravity, mass, on and on and on and on, including us. And our instantiation, our potential manifest as a human body is simply to manifest yet again something else. The mind that is able to perceive the entire process. How vast is that? Now, when you start thinking in those terms, when you go back and think about all these lengthy descriptions by Shakyamuni of take all the sands in the Ganges and crush them into dust and drop one dust particle for each world system you travel through the universe with. And when you expire all of those dust particles, then take all the world systems that you've gone by and crush them down, and then on and on and on. Your brain just breaks. It can't, those numbers are unfathomable. And that's in fact how Buddhism describes this vast array of manifestation from a single moment of agitation. in our precious little life, however long it may be, emergent as it may be, its only role is to witness the whole thing. That is what we call Buddha. Not the energy, but the realization of the whole drama. That's Buddha. That's clarity. That's disassociation while being in the midst of. We don't annihilate samsara. We just reevaluate it. It's not a permanent place. It's not a place where new things are existent of their own nature and can be owned and collected and traded. That's our samsaric illusion. That's what self and ego do. If you finally see the whole drama and our little place in it, which is no mean feat, and we share it with others, how glorious, no matter how brief, an experience is that. That's what we're hunting. That's the treasure tower. That's enlightenment. So this is why Buddha says, or Shakyamuni says, I manifest nirvana. Okay, I'm going to be extinct here soon. But in fact, my Buddha, my awareness, my potential, it never goes away. Me goes away. Siddhartha goes away, is extinct. My mind is extinct. But the energies that formed all of this, mind included, perception included, they're just expressions of potential. And there will be others. There is constant expression of potential all around us, all the time. And long after this universe collapses or disintegrates or cycles or whatever it's going to do, it's just going to be another agitation. And whatever potential pool it draws from and creates is that for a time, albeit billions of years. It's still just a measurement of time. So this is why he says, I enter into nirvana, and I call it extinction because I have to. Because in samsara, if I don't, people will think they can follow a ghost, follow an energy, follow whatever. The only place you can follow Buddha is in your own Buddha. And that's only emergent when you're here in samsara. To eradicate the view of extinction is called dissolving. So he's saying that you could, instead of thinking of death or extinction as an end, it's a dissolving, it's a dissolution. In my old videos I did years ago on the 3,000 realms, the origins of life, that's how I explained it. There's a amalgamation, a realization, a decay, and then a dissolution, a dissolving. Everything goes back into the potential pool. It's no consciousness there. There's no mind there. There's no soul there. We got rid of that idea a long time ago. One should ponder in this light the teaching that the three provisional vehicles are precisely the one true vehicle. In another sense, he straightway dissolved the conjured city means eradicating the temples and pagodas of those who slander the Dharma. Now that one leaves me completely confused. That's an association that, oh man, there's so many troubles in this document. He straightway dissolves the conjured city means he eradicates the temples and pagodas of those who slander the law. This guy is really stuck on identification. Look, he straightway dissolved the conjured city. Where is the city conjured? In your mind. If you dissolve the conjured city, that's something you do. You attain enlightenment. You awaken. How that translates into eradicating the temples and pagodas of those who slander the Dharma. It's like somehow you have a superpower, and by being enlightened, you destroy other practitioners of other sects or religions. Only in your own mind. That's a very confused statement. Now Nichiren and his followers, there's that meme. Now Nichiren and his followers are the conjured city, being precisely the place of jewels. I suppose what he's trying to identify there is that we are chanting the Daimoku, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. And so all of us are precisely the place of jewels. Yeah, so we're all treasure towers. Okay. The place wherein we dwell is the place of jewels, of which it is said, quote, mountains, valleys, and wide plains are all the land of eternal tranquil light. Okay, he's starting to be repetitive now. From the 20 important matters of the jeweled stupa chapter, another chapter of the Lotus Sutra, but the 20 important matters of the jeweled stupa, I think that is a reference to a chapter in Nikko's notes, the Ongi Kuden. Because I don't think the Lotus Sutra is worded that way. It talks about the jeweled stupa, but the 20 important matters of the jeweled stupa would be a commentary on that chapter. I'll look that up, but 1. The jeweled stupa, Chuan 8 of the Wen Chu reads, again, now we're using a different document. The former Buddha, many jewels, was already present, and the present Buddha, Shakyamuni, sits by his side. Yeah, that's when we learned about the appearance of the jeweled stupa, right? Which Nichiren embodies in the mandala as the Namu Myoho Renge Kyo column right in the center. What he's basically saying, this is a teaching of Shakyamuni's, and he's saying the enlightened potential was there before I came along, and I join it in this ceremony in the sky, right? And the same is true of future Buddhas as well, all of us. The Ongi Kuden states, now we're back to Nikko, the jewels are the 5 skandhas, the stupa their temporary union. A temporary union of the 5 skandhas is called the jewel stupa. To see that the 5 skandhas in their temporary union are the 5 characters Myoho Renge Kyo is called beholding. Now Nichiren and his followers who chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo behold the jewel stupa. Okay, this is yet another way of saying the same thing, that this apparatus, when we perceive it clearly through Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, through our Buddha mind, how do we do that? We do that with the benefit of all our consciousnesses, right? When we chant, we use our eyes focused on mandala. We use our ears listening to our own mouth enunciating the law, Myoho Renge Kyo, our dedication to and preparedness to initiate our Buddha nature, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. We breathe, we feel, we sense the vibrations in our bodies. All of our senses, oral, mouth, tongue, feeling, taste, smell, incense, right? Eyesight. So all of the skandhas combined, used together, become the instantiator, the invoker of our Buddha mind with the help of a mandala. And, excuse me. and are chanting. So this is what that statement really says. It's the union of the five skandhas is temporary. Obviously, life is constantly changing. So there's a lot to unpack in that paragraph, but it's pretty straightforward, really. 3, its four sides each sent forth the fragrance of Tamalpatra Kadana. Chuan 8 of the Wenchu reads, I want to find this Wenchu document. Its four sides sent forth fragrance means that the Marga wind of the Four Noble Truths, suffering, origin, cessation, and the path, carries the fragrance of the Buddha's four virtues, self, eternity, purity, and happiness. I'm still stumbling over that self business. The Ongi Kuden states, the four sides... Shut up. The Ongi Kuden states, the four sides of the jeweled stupa represents birth, old age, sickness, and death. Well, I don't know that it represents that, but it could be a teaching device. With these four aspects, we adorn the stupa of our person. When we chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo in birth, old age, sickness, and death, the fragrance of the four virtues emerges. Namu indicates the perfection, paramita, of happiness. Okay. Myoho, the perfection of self. What is going on here? Renge, the perfection of purity, and Kyo, the perfection of eternity. Oh, come on. As soon as I start feeling good about this document, something like that comes up, and there would have to be a great deal more dialogue about what he means by the perfection of self before I could in any way swallow that one. He's making a reference to the self that he's attributing to Buddha, but Buddha doesn't have a self. This keeps creeping in. This deification of Shakyamuni, as everything comes from him, is the same misinterpretation that deifies Nichiren. That is not correct. Shakyamuni attained Buddhahood, and he goes to great lengths to make sure that people understand that there's Shakyamuni, the human being, the unenlightened, samsaric being like you and I, demonstrating that we, like he, can instantiate, manifest our Buddha mind of clarity, wisdom, non-attached to samsara, not Shakyamuni, not the human being, the mental, perceptive participation in a process that's immense. The body is simply an apparatus to allow that mind to provide a fundament for that mind to emerge. The perfection of that body does nothing. The perfection of that body is to not have that body. I don't mean by killing or annihilating. I'm saying by perceiving through the mind. That perception is in the mind. It's not in your bones. It's not in your flesh. That's all the conjured stuff. That's the apparatus. So what is this perfection of the self? If it's perfection, it's no self. If it's a self, it's deluded. It's not perfection. So there's that profound error again. It keeps creeping up. 6, there was a land named Jewel Pure. In it was a Buddha called Many Jewels. The Ongi Kuden states, the realm called Jewel Pure is our mother's womb. In it was a Buddha. Well, in it was a human being to create an apparatus wherein the Buddha could manifest. What is going on with the phone today? Ugh. I don't have a car, but they keep wanting to warranty it. The realm jewel pure is our mother's womb. In it was a Buddha. Indicates the Buddha who is all dharmas manifesting the true aspect. That is why he is called the Buddha many jewels. Maybe this is a convoluted way of saying that the initial birth of a human being is all mothers' wombs, instantiating humans that can manifest their Buddha-ness. It's a stretch, it's not very well worded, but let's give it some credit for the time being. Again, he says, the womb indicates the defilements, but amid the mire and the muck of the defilements is the Buddha who is true suchness. This refers to us, living beings. Now, when Nichiren and his followers chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we are the Buddha who is the Lotus as Dharma entity. It sure is going a long way around what we've already studied, is that when we chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we instantiate the three bodies of Buddha, right? We've had long discussions about that. From the 8 important matters of the Devadatta chapter, 6, there is the daughter of the Dragon King Sagara, whose years are barely 8. The Ongi Kuden states, the 8 years represent the 8 roles of the Lotus Sutra. Okay. Devadatta represents the realm of hell. The Dragon Girl represents the Buddha realm. However, the 10 realms are mutually contained, making 100 realms, 1,000 suchnesses, and 3,000 realms. Man, it just seems like a word salad, doesn't it? Let's throw in a little 3,000 realms. Let's throw in, hey, how many roles are there in Lotus? 8? Well, that's like the Dragon Girl's age. Let's associate those two, and let's put it all together, and we've got a salad. I'm not sure that says anything. It also states the Dragon Girl's 8 years represent the 8 roles of the Lotus Sutra. Well, you already said that. They are the defilements that are our 8 sufferings. We have only 8? One should bear in mind that in its entirety, the attainment of Buddhahood set forth in the Lotus Sutra is represented by the 8 years of the Dragon Girl. The 8 sufferings are precisely the 8 roles, and these 8 sufferings, being the 8 roles, appeared as the 8-year-old Dragon Girl. And the 8th month of the 8th day of the 8th hour is when we once were 8, we then turn 18, and then turn 28, represents time and space, and blah, 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 blah. What is this? Oh my God. Oh, don't worry, he's got another interpretation. Is that the 8 years should be read as opening a jewel. The jewel indicates the one mind of the Dragon Girl, and the opening the 3,000 realms. I could make that work, but therefore 8 years is what is expressed by opening the Buddha's knowledge and insight. All right, I got to see what the reference says on this. Wow, I was not prepared for this much craziness. Oh, it's just a Taisho reference. Well, I don't know if this guy got his position, but he's working it. The passage from she is wise and of keen faculties to she is able to attain Bodhi represents conversion to the Lotus Sutra. Yeah, we know that from the story. Within this passage and the phrase, the thoughts of her mind and the explanations of her mouth represent verbal actions. Her will and thought are harmonious and refined, represents mental actions. And the most profound store of secrets preached by the Buddha, she is able to accept and hold it in its entirety, and she has deeply entered dhyana concentration, represents bodily actions. The three kinds of actions being precisely the Buddha's three virtues, they are the Dharma nature that is triple truth. I'm sorry, friends. I'm reading this document because I think there's so much mystery that surrounds this document and little scholarship that I want to be thorough. But what a huge difference between this rambling and Nico with 1K and his clearly authored document, his own documentation of the lectures of Nichiren. How much more smooth and followable was his note-taking and writing on Nichiren's lectures. This is all over the place. And if you were trying to teach somebody and try to baffle them with bull, you know what? This sounds a lot like that. I mean, you have to go quite a stretch to make some of these assertions maybe work. We're going to read the whole thing. As long as my patience holds out. He may surprise me. But as to its authorship, there's nowhere in this document where he says, I took these notes, I am da-da-da. He doesn't sign it at the end. He doesn't take credit for it in the beginning. It's just a random collection of notes. You know, this might have just been homework assignments that were gathered together and stuck into the canon of Nichiren by, monks who were trying to make noise about their own sect and trying to validate themselves. Because this doesn't look scholarly at all. There are moments, but there's a lot of confusion in this. A lot of dancing back and forth between self, identity, and Buddhahood, and mixing them up. This just validates for me that there's a real problem with ego throughout the Fuji school. But with all of that, I'm kind of tired of reading it at this point. So we'll continue with some more. There's a few more pages. He was long-winded. And we'll see how many times he tries to say the same thing. Maybe there's something in here that's really wonderful and exceptional. But the last few paragraphs have been very confounding. So with that, thank you. If you have questions, maybe you heard something in this and you have a perspective that I'm not catching. So let me know that in the comments, okay? In the meantime, keep your practice strong. This is all informational stuff. We're repeating a lot of the same things we know. But it's also to decloud, demystify some of these things that aren't talked about enough, so we can see for ourselves, right? Thank you for that. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your likes and your subscriptions. Share. You can do that. I didn't know that for a long time with YouTube, that you can share with, not just in your emails, but amongst each other or the group. Well, not this group because we all have it, but anyway, you know what I mean. Other friends you may have on YouTube doing things. Or Twitter or I pulled a blank. Instagram. Anyway, those of you who are supporting financially, you're why we're here. So thank you. Please, if you can, keep doing that. Solicit some others maybe to help to do that. It would be, I think I'm ready for it, perhaps not, but I like the idea of having at least once a week, maybe an open, live communication. I think that would be really interesting. We'll see. It hasn't happened yet. It's not an easy task. Equipment, money, all of that. But this is what I'm doing with my life, so it's not a matter of not having time. I may need help, and that, but we'll keep working toward it. It will happen if it can. In the meantime, take care of your health. Be kind to yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.